Technology can be like a flywheel, and flywheels do a lot of work, but they slow down if they don't get an injection of new energy. Artificial intelligence looks like the energy coming into the flywheel of IT right now. My next guest has looked into this. He's the Chief Technology Officer at Booz Allen, Bill Vass. Bill, good to have you on.
Hey, it's great to be here, Tom.
And you have been, safe to say, following technology for a great many years, and in the cloud and in the data center and in government and in industry.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
So what's your sense of where we're headed with AI? Because there's a lot of heat. Where's the light shining?
True. But remember, the engine of AI is data. And I think that's an important piece that we can't forget. And so data has been called the new oil for a long time. But I think data is getting even more gravity in this space, because the more data you have, the more accuracy these parameters can get in your model. And then the more accurate the model becomes over time. And so when I started at AWS about 10 years, kind of knowing that ML would grow, I didn't think about transformer models or delusion models at the time, 10 years ago. But knowing that it would go, I focused a lot on storage, making it very cheap to store things forever. Because I knew as more things got connected and more data and more logs occurred, you'd want to store it forever. And then the next focus was, of course, making it easy to stream the data in and connect everything with IoT. And IoT had a lot of promise for a long time, but it's actually starting to pay off now. And then that can feed into digital twins that you can do virtual simulation in the cloud with. And then when you have a lot of data you've collected, you can train these new transformer models to generate synthetic data, which was done manually. We would when we did robotic training at Amazon and other places I've worked, when I did autonomous systems in the ocean with liquid robotics, we generated a tremendous amount of synthetic data using procedural capabilities and artists and a whole bunch of other stuff. Now, with some of the stuff coming out of Luna AI, latest stuff from OpenAI and others, and Anthropic, and actually Hugging Face just did a release last week. In the ability to generate 3D synthetic data, which, robots and drones and us work in 3D environments. And so creating synthetic 3D environments is a big deal. And
Sure.
Then, of course, we saw the launch of Cosmos by NVIDIA, which has got a tremendous amount of both synthetic and real 3D environment to do that training on the three-computer problem. And then the interesting thing, AI makes it so that flywheel, then you take all that training and data, improve your AI, improve your software systems, which then you put back out into operation, which generates more data, and it just pushes that flywheel again.
And what's your sense of how this happens to affect the architecture of the systems that federal agencies are using, or any large customer, in the sense that people are rethinking storage in the cloud and rethinking what their data centers can do for them in the AI data area, because they want the provenance of the data. And as you say, long-term storage, the cloud may not be the most economical option. And if you need the data close to processing, then how do you?
Yeah, so I'll argue that it is the most economical option for storage. If you have durable storage, it's very expensive to do durable storage on your own, because you got to have 3 physical data centers that you replicate the data across that are at least 60 kilometers away, 10 to 60 kilometers away from each other. Setting up the networks for that and getting, the storage on AWS is 11 nines durable. That's very hard to do on your own and incredibly expensive. And so you can do it incredibly cheaply on Glacier, for example, on AWS. On S3 Glacier is it's much cheaper than anything you could store yourself on-prem. However, more and more you're seeing a lot of need to do the inference and even inference learning at the edge. And that's where you start to see everything becomes software-defined, pushing software-defined systems for satellites, for drones, for cars, for all of those kinds of things, the ability to collect at the edge and use the models to filter at the edge too. So that's an important piece too. It's expensive to send all the data back. On a security camera, you don't need to send 30 frames per second of an empty parking lot at night. You can have an ML routine on the camera now, on these little tiny Wise cameras that are $25, that you've trained on the cloud to look for changes. And then when a car drives through the parking lot at 3 a.m., that 4 seconds gets sent up, the rest doesn't. And so there's a lot you can happen here. I think it's an exciting time as the edge gets more powerful, storage on the edge gets more powerful, but also the cloud's getting more powerful at the same time.
We're speaking with Bill Vass. He's Chief Technology Officer at Booz Allen Hamilton. And what's your assessment of the DeepSeek, not so much the DeepSeek itself, but the fact that they purportedly have powerful models running on conventional chip hardware and not on the NVIDIA? Is that actually that significant, or is it less significant than we think, or maybe it's really revolutionary?
Well, I think it's significant in that, I've played a lot personally with that, and we've been running it in sandboxes and stuff. And just be aware that it says even on their website that your data goes back to China. So anyone using it, if you pull the model down and run the tensors locally in a sandbox, you can play with it. And a great example on Amazon Web Services, they have DeepSeek available in Bedrock in a sandbox that's safe to use. So I do encourage people to experiment with it. But what they did is some pretty, for the longest time, and I used to race cars a lot, so there used to be an old-fashioned saying, there's no replacement for displacement, right? So we were just, in the race to build the bigger model, we just kept adding GPUs and adding GPUs. And it was only a matter of time till someone said, we're going to pit too much to fill up with gas. We're going to need to make them more efficient with turbochargers or whatever. And so what they did is do a number of things. They did what's called a mixture of experts, so that you don't have to go through the full model. It recognizes different types of questions, and then it doesn't require to go through the full model for everything, right? It's got specialized sections of the model. The second thing they did was distillation. Now, some people are complaining that, well, that was cheating. So distillation is using somebody who spent a huge amount of money on a big model and then sending a bunch of questions to the big model, getting the answers, and then training on the questions and the answers to bypass the need for the giant model. So that's another thing they did. So the other people spent the money on the GPUs and then they leveraged it, right? And so that's very smart. And then last is this chain of thought components that they've built in there. Whereas what the big models do is they have a bunch of people. If you want to solve a problem, it lays out the steps of the problem, and the model learns from the steps and the answer. They just sent the question and the answers and avoided a lot of the step training, right? And so those are all ways, at Amazon, I also ran our video game systems and things like that. And to do real-time 3D graphics, if you like, quote unquote, cheat a lot. You don't, like, if I was rendering your image right now, I wouldn't render the stuff behind you, right, to save rendering engine, because I have to react quickly. And so these are things that they did to reduce things. Now, I don't personally believe they did it for $6 million of compute.